movie starts, we do have an amazing panel for you. And to host that panel, I would like to welcome Jonathan London, who is the host of the Geekscape podcast. So let's bring him out and we'll get right from here.
Hello, how's everybody doing? All right, let me just ask you one quick question before we start our panel. How many of y'all have seen this movie before? And how many of you are seeing it for the very first time? Okay, I'm going to ask the other half of you to not spoil it for that half of you, but what do you say we get to the panel? These are people who have made the movie. We got some of the cast and crew here to talk to you for about 30 minutes before the movie starts. I'm excited to introduce them. First off, we've got the producer of the film, Jeffrey Chernoff is here. You can't make a film without a director. We've got Dwayne Dunham, the director of the original film. Those of you who have seen the movie will recognize this next actor. It's Robert Hayes. He played Bob. Followed by the man who put this event together. In the film, he played Peter, my good friend Ben Stahl. In the movie Hope. This is Veronica Lauren Sawyer. And finally, you gotta round out the kids. We got our Jamie, Kevin Chevalier. Come on out here. No offense to the human actors, but look at these three actors up here on stage. Let's meet the team responsible for their performances. These are lead animal trainer Joe Camp and Tammy Maples. Come on out. Backstage, some of them have not seen each other since the production wrapped. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Wow. Well, Dwayne, let's start with you. I think they are all on. I think they're.
Is this on?
We got you. We got you. So Dwayne,
He turned yours off, Bob.
it was your job to direct the film. Talk about your journey to the film.
Well, it's been a long one, and more amazing that we're all here celebrating this movie that we did 30 years ago, and it's quite an honor to be here and have the not whole cast and crew, but so many, and the memory of the animals, though, is quite different when I see them on the screen. I have very mixed emotions about the whole thing, Joe. But I'll tell you very quickly how this happened. I was looking for my first, I'd done some television, looking for my first feature directing job, and Disney gave me a script, and I liked the script, and it was a story and it took place in Harlem in 1965, and it was R&B groups and black female singers. And I kept going one meeting after another, and I kept saying, you know, I'm going on a trip. I have a family obligation up in Oregon, Black Butte Ranch, and I gotta. So they forced my meetings, and I went in, and this one executive, probably the last one in line that could green light me, said to me, "Why do you want to do this movie?" And I just gave him the truth. I said, one of the real questions, I said, I'm a storyteller. I could do this movie, but why would you want me to do this movie? And he says, what do you mean? I said, look, I'm a guy from Southern California. I know the beach, and this is Harlem. This is R&B. I said, I can do it, but why? And he put his pencil down, and I thought, okay. And he says to me, looks right at me, and he says, so what kind of story do you want to do? And I said, I want to do a story of a kid who grows up on this farm, and every day he walks to that far fence, and he looks out, and he looks back. And one day he goes, and he jumps the fence. The guy now stands up and leaves the room, and I'm thinking, what an idiot. You just talked yourself out of a job. He came back, he dropped this script on my lap, and he said, you've got to read this right away, and call me in the morning. And it was this script, it was Homeward Bound, called Incredible Journey at the time. immediately, and I was on a plane that afternoon, believe it or not, to Black Butte Ranch up in Oregon, and that's where we were going to set up our operations, in Black Butte Ranch. So I said, I'll start scouting tomorrow. Yeah, I'm on vacation. Still on vacation, Bob.
That's what this business is a vacation.
He just wanted to write off his vacation, didn't you? How about you? So Bob, what was your path to it, Robert?
My manager, Fran Saperstein, had come across the script and told my agent, who didn't know anything about it. Really good agent. Legal, and legal, I think, was the agency. I don't know. But so that was it. We started and had meetings, and I loved the script. The story was wonderful, and that's how it basically how it happened.
And Benj?
Yeah, I had already been working as a child actor for about 2 or 3 years. The interesting thing about this project is I had done all my auditions on tape, and tape was kind of a new thing for auditions and such. You used to have to go in, now it's only tape. But I had done 3 tapes, and then some time had gone by, and then all of a sudden I got the job. And it was like about 2 or 3 days later, I was flying up to Oregon where we shot the film. And I distinctly remember like being, I met Veronica the first night we were there, and then the next day we're in the van to go meet the animals, meet the rest of the cast. And they dropped us off in the PA, and the van was like, go and, the director's up there waiting for you. And I said, who's the director? Because I had never met Dwayne, I think, until that day. It was all on tape, and so that was my journey, auditioning, and then we got cast, and I'm so grateful for them casting.
Any actors out there who've had to audition on Skype for the last 2 years are saying the same thing? They're like, yeah, that's how it goes. It's all remote. Veronica, did you have a similar story?
Yeah, I wish, I mean, listening to you recall it, I wish that I had that level of memory around it. I mean, I remember being there, and I remember so much time on set, and I remember so much of the crew and my time with the animals. We were just talking about that. It was so special, some of the significant moments. But the leading up to, I got nothing.
and Kev, you were like a baby. How old were you when you made this movie?
Yeah, I had turned 6 second day of production. So, like Veronica, my memory is a little patchy.
Do y'all remember doing anything for Kev's birthday, or did they do anything for your birthday?
The story was, we were second day in the park. We were in a park doing a kind of a family photo shoot, and it was like we were all meeting each other, meet and greet. Some background photos were being taken, and there was a birthday cake in the shape of a dog bone. And as a 6-year-old, I'm thinking, oh, that's a birthday cake, celebrate my birthday. Oh, okay, kind of cool. Turns out it was for like a background family photo in the house of the dog's birthday. Family celebration for the dog.
What was it made of, Dwayne? It wasn't edible, was it?
Trying to sedate me at that time. We were about ready to shoot. It's a scary time with these animals.
And so that's the day that y'all shot, like whenever you make a movie, you got the family, you gotta have family photos in the house and give them a backstory. And that was kind of the way that y'all all met. And the animals were there. Joe and Tammy, was that like the warm up for getting the animal actors familiar with the actors?
Yes, that was the first day we spent just introducing the animals and the kids and getting them comfortable with each other, and there were multiples, so
Of the animals.
Of the animals, not of the children. Not of the kids.
So, Jeff, go ahead.
And the best thing, it gave Dwayne a chance to meet some of the animals and he wasn't so sure when he saw Ben, but
The dog.
he was patient with us.
So Jeffrey, you've got to put the whole thing together as a producer. What are some of the challenges of working with live animals and also working with kids? No offense, guys, but they always tell you, don't work with live animals, don't work with kids, right? That's the advice they give filmmakers.
Yes, and don't go on the water. And, we were close. We stayed away from going on the water. You have to have a lot of patience. And this is how we come to work in the morning. And just understand that the animals feel the energy, the actors feel the energy, and trying to get them in sync, at the beginning of the day is the biggest challenge. And as the day progresses, we shot in the summer, it got warmer. As it gets warmer, the animals tend to not want to work as much. And then as the day progresses, the more they get treats, the less hungry they are, and the less they want to perform.
They get tired.
They get tired, just like regular, real human actors. So it became a job that was very difficult initially to get the right rhythm, to get everybody to understand this. And Joe Camp, really folks, this movie is not a movie without Joe Camp and his talented who have maybe saw this movie when it was released 30 years ago. Honestly, this was groundbreaking stuff. No one had done this before. Certainly, shortly after we were doing the voiceovers, someone got the idea to put lips on animals and have them speak. But before that, it was a huge challenge, and Dwayne had an amazing editing background, understood the nuances. And sometimes we'd be on a shot for 20 minutes. We'd be running out of film in the cameras because we weren't shooting digital then. And people go, what's going on? I said, he's just waiting to find that one look that tells the story. And we used to get notes from the studios like, why are you shooting hundreds of thousands of feet of film a day? And it was like, because we haven't found the look yet. And he said, what's the look? I said, Dwayne will know when he finds it. So it was an orchestral kind of group of people that had to really understand, and we had these conversations like, guys, it's just going to take a lot to get this. So, look, we all go to the movies, we love movies. The idea is when you go to the movie not to think about any of the technical sides of it, but just know that we put our heart and soul into making this just so that you can sit back and enjoy it.
Just to that end, I just want to clarify one thing. When Jeffrey's talking about patience, we found this house out there with a whole cast out there where we dropped off the animals. Family drives
The ranch, right?
the ranch. And this guy, the first day we met him, I was ecstatic when we saw the place. We had been looking everywhere. And I was like, oh gosh, we gotta have this. And Jeffrey's like, calm down, don't let him know you want it so bad. It's gonna cost more money. And the guy said to us, talking about being patient, he says, I'll let you fellas use my property here, but there's a couple of conditions. No drinking, no swearing, no smoking, and at 5 o'clock every day, my 6 cows are coming in. You have to stop what you're doing and just be silent. Every day you hear the clanging of the bells, and to get a film crew to stop, at that time of day, you're trying to catch up 4 hours you fell behind earlier, and you just have to stop and watch these. It was so great. It was a perfect. No, I actually never did. It was just, okay, guys, stop.
Yell room tone and just make everybody stop for a bit. Okay, so you got to find the animals. Dwayne, Joe, what's the process of casting these animals? Because if you don't have the animals, like you said, if they can't give you the looks, then it doesn't work. Tammy, do you all remember the process of finding the animals and casting them?
I got my version.
I think we all have versions. I wasn't there for the whole casting, so I don't know. Joe has the stories about how they cast the dog. I know the cat was the first thing to be cast, I believe, and Tiki was our cat, but she was a rescue cat, and she was very shy. We had her. When we first got her, she would just stay under the bed, never come out. We'd put food out. She'd come out and get it whenever somebody would leave. And then eventually she started hanging out in the office, and she would sit around the office and file cabinets and be like an office cat. And I think Dwayne walked in and he was like, well, I don't know what we're doing for the dogs, but that's sassy. And we were like, oh no. and I was on a film in Hong Kong at the time, and it kept being extended before, and I knew I had to get back for prep, and I was like, I'm gonna get stuck with Tiki. I'm gonna get stuck with, but it was the best thing that could have happened to me because she taught me so much, and she turned around and like had her little light bulb moment. And she went on to, after this film, she was on Caroline in the City for 5 years, playing Leah Thompson's cat, and really had a pretty big career after, as far as being a famous cat.
Well, when we get to the dogs now, Dwayne and I would sit there and try to go over the dogs and look at different dogs, and Dwayne always kind of drift toward a golden retriever, which is what he had for a dog. I said, Dwayne, why don't you just go ahead and pick what you want here? And don't try messing around, just say, I like golden retrievers, and I'll get you a golden retriever. And I happen to have the luck of knowing a person that had the perfect golden retriever for the job. Not only was he not this beautiful long-haired dog, he was an old man. Just like in the movie, Old Shadow is an old dog. So we picked him because he filled the role. That was the best thing about the animals. We were so lucky in that when we found the animals, they were real characters themselves. And like certain actors, they fit right into the part. And, you know, at first I know Ben was there and Dwayne is looking at this big old dog and going, what am I going to do with that thing? And it turned out Ben was the star. And then we picked this, we wanted to pick a young Chance. We picked this American Bulldog, which was a new breed at the time. But they're very, very strong for their age, and that's why I picked him. Because we had to have more than just a puppy. We had to have a puppy that would work. And we picked Chance from a kennel friend of mine who raised American Bulldogs. And we decided we'd give him a shot because he was, although he was young, he was mature for his age. And we were very lucky. We just put it together that way. Everything seemed to be falling into place. And of course, when Dwayne said, I want that for Sassy, I about fell over.
Now, Dwayne probably has a different story about how they were cast.
It's not that different, but the details are slightly but look, Joe and Tammy, they explained it like these animals knew what they were doing. The first day I went out there with them, I said, okay, Joe, here's the thing. I'm gonna do a wide shot, have the cat lead, go up the hill by that tree there, and Ben will be right behind, and Rattler behind him. And Joe just looked at me like, what? And I went, well, yeah, that's just the wide shot, Joe. Then we'll go in for coverage. That's the night before shooting. And then, so I just want to say, when we picked Chance his real name was Rattler, and we were in a park over in Burbank, and looking at hundreds, maybe 1,000 different dogs and videotaping them all. And Joe's right, we were going to use a golden retriever for either the old or the young dog. We knew that. And this fireman from San Diego, Joe's friend, had come, and I think he had a different dog, but he brought this kennel out from his truck. And he opened the gate, and this little puppy, like, I don't know, 6, 7 months old, walked out, and I'd always told Joe, I said, Joe, when we pick these animals, don't let me shoot myself in the foot when I pick one. And that thing walked out, and Joe saw the look on my face. I look at Joe, he shakes his head, and I said, yeah, bud. And he says, well, you might have just shot a toe off, but I think we can make this work. Now, the amazing thing
That's
is...
exactly what I said. I shot your left foot off.
But Joe had confidence because he was a puppy. And we said, don't teach him to do anything other than sit, stay, know your name. Don't break the puppiness. Then one day we were shooting, and I would usually sit on one side of the camera if I wanted the animal, whichever one it was, to look on a certain side of the camera for screen direction. And so we sat up on the porch, and Jean, Kate was leaving and left the dogs there, and Chance is there, and he's supposed to go follow her to the gate and then turn around, and we didn't know what he'd do after that. It didn't matter what the script said. Every day, with every setup, I just turned to Joe and say, Joe, what's that animal likely to do? And then you prepare around what it's likely to do, and we just go from there. This morning, and when you watch the movie, you'll see Chance, he grows. And he was much smaller than Ben. There's another story with Ben. Ben wasn't the first choice either. But Chance is small, and as he grew bigger than Shadow, bigger than Ben. And this one morning, we're sitting there, and I got on the left side of camera, and I said, okay, Joe, here we go. And Joe says, well, what side of camera, where's he supposed to look here? What's the screen direction? I said, over here, I'm on the left. He says, well, if you're on the left, you better go sit on the right. I said, Joe, no, he's supposed to look at me right here. He says, yeah, I know, but you're going to have to sit on the other side of the camera if you want that. I said, what's going on? He says, I don't know how to really tell you this, but the dog grew so fast that overnight his skull expanded, and he went cross-eyed. So, Joe was right. I had to sit on the other side of the camera for him to look on the other side. So when you watch the movie, when he runs and falls and he runs into trees and he just kind of looking like, I'm kind of doofy, he can't see. And it was the other dog, we just very quickly, we cast a beautiful golden retriever. I don't remember her name. Molly. Molly was to be the hero dog. And the night before shooting, Joe came to me and said, again, I don't know how to tell you this, but Molly had something of a little heart attack. And he says, you can't use her. Now, I have one shot in the whole movie, you see it up here, which is Benj and Shadow. The whole movie is predicated on, do you understand the relationship between the boy and the dog when the boy says, I'm going away, but I'll come back, and you stay, and the dog is shaking. Well, that's why why Molly was cast. Because Molly, if you showed Molly a bird, she just starts shaking like this. I said, that's exactly the look that we need. So that's why so now she had a heart attack. Joe says, we can't use her. And I had to plead and say, Joe, could we just do like, when we get there, in about a month, just one shot, Joe. Just one shot. Could we just show her one bird? He says, we'll see when we get there. And Joe brought Ben in, and Ben was marvelous. We had a lot of backups that we used occasionally, but boy, all of the animals were sensational. But it was Joe and Tammy, and especially Joe with the dogs, just knowing how they work, and he could interpret what we wanted, and everybody else was like, I remember telling Jean Smart, she's used to TV, and the script is just so, and it's a breakfast scene, and we're out at the ranch, and she's eating her breakfast, and she's supposed to have a bowl of kibble for Chance, and I said, now Jean, I want to tell you something. We're going to start this scene, you're going to feed the dog and the cat, but the little guy is outside. He's chasing chickens. And when he comes through that door, I can't guarantee you I know what he's going to do. And she says, no, it says right here. It says right here. I said, Jean, I'm telling you something. Hey, the dog can't read that. And he doesn't listen to me or So we're start shooting the scene, and she's calm. She's done this a million times. She's eating her, okay, Shadow, okay, Sassy. And then I say, okay, bring in Chance. He comes running and hits the screen door at full speed. It practically breaks it off the hinges. She's standing there with his bowl of kibble, and he leaps up on her, and the kibble goes everywhere. You see it in the movie. You can't plan it any better. And then the kibble's everywhere, and he's now like a Hoover vacuum cleaner. And Shadow standing back like this. The cat sneaks back behind the sink. They're like, oh my God. But we took advantage of what those animals were giving us, and it was kind of hairy.
And I think the brilliant thing that during the film was that Dwayne, Joe, they shot the rehearsals all the time. You know, it was like we never did it when film wasn't rolling on it. So the first reaction, like with Rattler, sometimes they would get it and you would just like get this magic. I think actually the scene that is in the movie where Rattler runs into the tree, he started this thing because he was a puppy. He learned all of a sudden, hey, the cat's gonna run, that might be fun to chase, and then it became a timing thing of keeping the cat away from being in front of the dog so he didn't chase it. And so he was running and he turned around to see where the cat was coming and ran into the tree. But they were shooting it and it ended up in the film, but that wasn't scripted. They were just supposed to be moving along.
To add to this about the dogs and the cat, Dwayne always wanted the cat in the front and then the dogs to follow. And Joe said, we'll try it. Joe knowing it wasn't going to work. So we tried it, and the day was moving on, and I went to Dwayne and said, we have to put the dogs in front and the cat behind. And it worked. And then the next morning, we'd go to work, and Dwayne would say, okay, the cat's in the front this time, and the dogs are in the back. And I'm like, you know that's not going to work. But let's give it another shot. Okay. Dog's in the front now, cat's in the back. So we had to bend too. It all worked out. Everyone was always willing to give it the best shot, but we also knew that we had to get something every day. And eventually, it all just kind of came together. And one of the things that we touched on just briefly, which I think is really important that you get to share with us, is that we had a script, but we knew early on that the script was kind of just a blueprint to tell this story. We knew that the animals were doing things that were great, but it wasn't necessarily written that way in the script. So we went off script because the dogs and the cat took us there. And when we got in the editing room, Dwayne really started to figure out the same story, but we got so many wonderful things along the way that when we finally put the movie together, we actually came up with a whole new script telling the same story. So just know that we learned a lot along the way because we were breaking ground, and Dwayne really brought it home by understanding that he had such wonderful things in there that also told the same story, but made it so much more fun than the script that we had. So just know that what we started with and what we ended up with is the same story, but it's a lot more fun.
It's incredible. Well, this is the 30th anniversary, and there was actually a sequel a few years later in '96. The cast was a part of it, and knowing that they didn't have, what did they ask you, Dwayne? Knowing that y'all came back for the sequel the cast did, and knowing that we're here at the 30th anniversary, would y'all be open to, if they were to say, hey, let's do a third Homer Brown movie? Like, would y'all be into that? Would y'all be into that?
Sounds like some of them want that.
Look, if the right story comes along that tells a good story like Homer Bound.
The animals are going to rewrite it, though, is what.
Yeah, that's right. I guess we don't need a script, right? We just go out and we get a couple animals.
See what we get. Yeah.
Look, the fact that this movie at 30 years touches the hearts of so many, not just kids, adults, families that grew up with this film, I think it's a testament to this kind of storytelling. And I think there's definitely a space for it in the market. So, hey, I began.
I do have to say, Robert was the anchor. Whenever things got a little crazy, because Robert had to keep the family intact, keep the animals intact. And it was like, Robert, come on, man. You can find a way to get it all together today.
I remember the chain around my neck. Yeah. I was dragging something heavy. I do have to say, though, that this was such a wonderful experience to do because Jeffrey and Dwayne had a great atmosphere on the set. It was so, I know that they were tearing their hair out trying to figure out what to do with the dogs, especially with Chance, but who was so goofy. He was so goofy. It's so fun. But they had a wonderful atmosphere that they set, a great tone on the set, which made us all feel really good, and it made us be able to do our performances, I thought, a lot better, and bring it together as a family and show that the love for the dogs and for the family. So that was really wonderful. The other thing is when we would break, you couldn't play with the dogs because you had to and the cats because you had to keep them focused. But every once in a while, Joe would tell us, he'd say, "Okay, you can have 5 minutes with them." And then we dive on the ground into the middle of them all and snarfle them and just goof off and play, which was one of the highlights of the whole thing for me, because I think all of us do love the animals so much. But it was really a lot of fun. One thing that I heard a story about that my publicist told me was that they had a screening for the press before it was released, and maybe it was in Westwood. Anyway, the marketing and PR people were standing outside waiting. Well, all right, let's see if we can salvage anything out of this, because I don't know, it's just dogs and family, and who cares about that? Let's just hurry and get this thing over with. And so finally the doors opened, and the press came out, and they were all crying. And the Disney executives or the marketing and PR people were going, "They hated it. What's wrong? They hated it." And they said, "What did you hate about it?" And they said, "It was so beautiful." And they said, "They liked it? Oh my God." They ran back and said, "Oh, we got to do something else about it. We got to change our campaign." But I've had people come up to me, parents, I've had fathers come up to me, screaming and yelling at me, "I hate you, I hate your guts." And I said, "What?" He said, "I've had to watch that film 97 times. And then he said, "Really, I just love it, but, make something else quick."
Well, some of y'all are going to be watching this film for the first time. I want to say thank you to the cast and crew.